I was working as a security guard and had the night shift at the mall. It wasn't my first time pulling the late hours alone. Normally, it's just me wandering through the empty corridors, the stores all locked up, the silence broken only by the hum of the vents. But that night, as soon as I punched in, something felt off, like the air was too thick, too still. I started my rounds, my boots echoing on the shiny floors, the sound bouncing off the walls and making me flinch. The emergency lights cast a weak glow, just enough to see the outlines of the stores and the mannequins standing in the display windows. I've always hated those things, their blank stares, their stiff poses. But that night, they seemed alive somehow, watching me as I passed. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just the late hour, messing with my head. I checked the doors, made sure everything was locked tight. But when I walked by the department store, I stopped cold. One of the mannequins, the one in the black suit, was standing closer to the glass than it should have been. Its head was tilted, almost like it was listening to me breathe. I stared at it, my heart thudding, trying to convince myself I was wrong, but I wasn't. I kept moving, faster now, the feeling of eyes on my back growing stronger with every step. I glanced over my shoulder every few seconds, expecting something to be there, but it was just the empty hall and those damn mannequins staring out from the windows. By the time I hit the food court, I was jumpy, my nerves shot. The chairs were stacked on the tables, and the air smelled faintly of grease and popcorn. I was about to head back when I heard it, a rustling sound, sharp and close, like fabric sliding over plastic. It came from behind me, back toward the department store. I whipped around, my flashlight shaking in my hand, but the beam showed nothing but shadows. I told myself to calm down, to keep going, but my legs felt like lead. When I passed the next store, I saw it again, the same mannequin, except now it was wearing a red coat, its head turned right at me. My breath stopped. It couldn't be the same one. Mannequins don't move, but I knew that suit, that pose. And then as I watched, its arm twitched, lifting slowly until its hand pressed flat against the glass, fingers spreading out like it wanted to claw through. I ran. My boots slammed against the floor, the noise ringing in my ears like a scream. I didn't care how ridiculous I looked. I just had to get away. I made it to the security office, threw myself inside, and locked the door, my hands fumbling so bad I almost dropped the keys. The room was tiny, just a desk and some monitors under a flickering light. I collapsed into the chair, gasping, trying to tell myself I was imagining it. I'm tired, I thought. I've been working too many nights. That's all it is. But then I looked at the monitors, and my stomach twisted into knots. The cameras showed the mall, empty corridors, locked stores, everything normal, except the department store window. The mannequin in the red coat wasn't there. The space was empty, just a gap where it had been standing. I leaned closer, my breath fogging the screen, and switched to another camera. There it was, at the end of the hall, half in shadow, its blank face pointed straight at the lens, straight at me. I stumbled back, my mind spinning. This wasn't happening. It had to be a trick. Someone screwing with me, but the mall was sealed tight. I checked every exit myself. I grabbed the radio, desperate to call someone, anyone, but all I got was static, loud, and harsh, like voices muttering just under the noise. Then I heard it, footsteps outside the door, slow and heavy, like hard plastic hitting tile. My throat closed up. I killed the light, plunging the room into black, and pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. The steps got closer, each one twisting my insides tighter, until they stopped right outside. The handle jiggled, soft at first, then harder. I bit my lip to keep quiet, praying it'd give up. It went still, and just when I thought it was over, a scratching started. Long, dragging scrapes down the door, like something sharp was digging in. The sound stopped, and the footsteps moved away, fading into the distance. I waited, counting to 100 in my head, until I couldn't hear anything but my own heartbeat. I crept to the door and peeked through the little window. The hall was empty, but it felt wrong, like something was waiting just out of sight. I couldn't stay there. I had to get out. I unlocked the door, stepped into the corridor, and started toward the main exit, hugging the walls, my flashlight darting around. The mall felt darker now, the shadows thicker, swallowing the edges of everything. When I passed the next door, I saw it, the mannequin again, now in a white gown, its face mashed against the glass, those empty eyes tracking me as I moved. I bolted, the exit doors just ahead. But when I got there, they wouldn't open. I yanked at them, then reached for my keys. Gone. My pockets were empty. A creak came from behind me, slow and deliberate. I turned, my light landing on the mannequin standing in the middle of the hall, its arms and legs bent all wrong, its head cocked like a broken doll. Then it stepped forward, a jerky, stuttering move that made my skin crawl. I backed up, my mind screaming at me to run, and took off toward the parking garage exit, the only other way out. I flew down the escalators, the metal creaking under me, and hit the garage, a maze of shadows and dying lights. I sprinted through the empty rows, the exit sign glowing ahead, but then something stepped into my path. Another mannequin, its face smooth and featureless. Then another came from the side, and another, their plastic joints clicking as they closed in. I swung my flashlight, trying to find a gap, but they were everywhere, their hands reaching out, fingers sharp and cold. I lunged forward, but one grabbed my arm, its grip like ice. I thrashed, kicked, screamed, but more hands clamped onto me, dragging me down. Their blank faces filled my vision, hovering over me as I hit the ground, and then everything went black. When the morning crew found me, I was in the display window, dressed up like one of them, my body stiff, my eyes locked open. They say I went crazy, that I kept muttering about the plastic people. But I know what happened. They're still out there in that mall, waiting for the next shift, watching, just like they watched me.